How you guys doing? This is Zach again. In today's do-it-yourself video, I'm atop Mount Washington here in northern New Hampshire, elevation of about 6,288 feet, and I'm on the actual Mount Washington Auto Road, which traverses 8 miles at about 12% grade, and it's really a torture test for your brakes. So I'm going to show you how to replace the brakes today, and I'm also going to talk about which brakes I use on my own personal car, and then we're going to put it to the test on the auto road and see if I can get down safe. The tools you'll need for this are a hammer to break free the rotor from the hub, a pry bar or screwdriver, a 6 and 7 millimeter hex key, and a 16 and 17 millimeter socket with socket wrench. The first thing we're going to do is remove the 6 millimeter hex head tie down screw that holds the rotor to the hub. The reason we're going to do this first is you may need to have somebody help you press the brakes to keep the rotor from spinning, especially if this is stuck on nice and good. Mine is not, so I'm just going to remove this. With the car properly jacked up and supported, I'm going to use my screwdriver or pry bar to pry against the rotor and the anti-rattle clip. Next, on the back of the caliper, we're going to remove 2 dust covers that'll give us access to our 7 millimeter hex head guide pin, and then go ahead and remove that. Next, I'm going to use my pry bar or flathead screwdriver to pry the piston back into the caliper using the force of the rotor. And this will make the caliper easy enough to remove from the car. Now, with the guide pins removed and the tension off of the caliper, we can remove the caliper off of the caliper carrier. Now, with the caliper off, we can use our 16 millimeter socket to remove the 2 caliper carrier bolts. Now we can remove the rotor. Depending on how stuck on your rotor is to the hub, you may need to use a hammer to persuade the rotor to come off. You always want to make sure you strike flat on the face of the rotor and never down at an angle, as you'll ruin the wheel bearing inside the hub. Luckily, mine comes off, reveals the hub underneath. Next, you're going to want to make sure that your mating surface is perfectly smooth and free from any debris or rust that may be there, as this will make the wheel vibrate a little bit on the highway. I'm going to replace my old rotor with a new set of Zimmermann cross-drilled rotors that I got from FCP Groton. Then I'm going to replace the retaining screw. As for my choice of rotors and pads, I picked up a set of these PBR ceramic metallic brake pads. You can actually see the metallic material in the brake pad itself. And what this allows for is a better bite onto the rotor surface. Also, I went with these Zimmermann cross-drilled rotors, and what these holes add to the rotor is actually a better mating surface for the pad itself. Now, on traditional flat smooth rotors, you have an instant where there's a buffer of air between the rotor and the pad itself, especially on hard braking situations. And with these cross-drilled rotors, what it allows for is a passageway for that air to escape, so that you get a better biting surface, faster biting surface for the pad. Next, I'm going to reattach my caliper carrier bracket to the back of the hub. Now, although these PBR brake pads have this rubber protecting liner on the back to prevent squeaking, I always like to add just a little bit of grease to the edges and the corners of the brake pads before I put them in the caliper carrier, just to make sure they don't squeak. Now that I've replaced the brake pads, I'm going to reattach the caliper to the caliper carrier. And then retighten the 2 caliper guide pins on the back. And now, with the caliper carrier torqued down, as well as the caliper guide pins, I'm going to replace the anti-rattle clip. And that's it. Here we are at the bottom of Mount Washington, made it down safely. Didn't have any brake fade. The brakes actually work really, really well. I saw a lot of cars pulling over to cool their brakes down along the way, but made it down safely. I want to thank you again for all the comments and questions that you guys send to me. Keep them coming, and I'll see you guys next time.